Alright, it is time for me to talk about my battle with cancer. And there's really no better place to start talking about it than going back to the very beginning, which would be late 2011. So it was at that time when I was just being a normal kid in the 5th grade, right? But I started to notice something going on with my body, specifically in the neck region. There was like this one spot on my neck that was like growing rapidly in size, and that turned out to be a swollen lymph node. Now, I'm not gonna show any damn pictures of it on here, but to give a perspective of what it looked like, think of like taking a golf ball, cutting it in half, and then placing it on my neck. Pretty much, that tells you how noticeable it was. Cause like I would be at school like most of the time, and people go like, "Ew, what the fuck is that?" And of course, this was a deep concern within the family. Like my parents were like going to doctors and saying, what the hell should we do about this? This is very, very concerning, you know? But the thing was, in the early stages, the doctors were like, this isn't really a big concern at this time. It'll probably just go down in a few days or whatnot. So we took the doctor's advice and hoped for the best for the next couple of months, to no avail, because after all that time, it didn't go down not a damn bit. So then my parents took me back to the doctor and they're like, okay, we gotta do something about this very soon because this is getting very scary. And one tactic that the doctor tried at first was to take a needle and stick it into the damn lymph node, right? And this didn't sit well with me at the time because I was very afraid of needles when I was a kid. It just, every time I get poked, I just cry like a little baby. But fortunately for this time, I didn't cry at all. I just went through the pain. It was awful. And even after all of that, it still did not go down. So after trying every little thing to try to get this lymph node down, it was obvious at that point that the only way to solve this problem was to get rid of it through surgery. And so, surgery happens. It goes as smooth as possible. I take a couple days to recover at the hospital with a damn tube going up my neck. But after that, I get sent home. And at that point, I'm thinking, this is it, right? I could get this whole saga behind me. But then a week goes by, and my father gets a call from the doctor, and they give him the unfortunate news that that lymph node tested positive for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And at that time, I got the news when I heard my mom absolutely burst into tears. So when I went in to go check on her, that was when my parents had no other choice but to tell me the truth about what was going on. Once my dad told me that I had cancer, it was legit the moment that everything in my life had changed forever. Because everything after that moment starts going by really fast. Like, first of all, I obviously had to be taken out of public school. And then second, I have to start going down to a hospital, which is 2 hours away, so I could get my chemotherapy started. I was just getting adjusted to this brand new life that I was going to have for quite some time. But while I was doing that, my family was able to accommodate me by getting me distracted with video games. So they got me my very own Xbox 360, and the only game I played at the time was Modern Warfare 3. Oh, so that's why he's showing gameplay of MW3 in 2024. Oh, it all makes sense now. Having video games at the time was very vital to me, because the 7 months of chemotherapy would prove to be absolute hell. During those 7 months, I was spending half the time at home and half the time at the hospital. So you can imagine all those days where you have to drive back and forth, and all those nights I had to spend at the hospital too, because holy shit, it was awful. I watched the Super Bowl from the hospital. I celebrated my birthday at the hospital. Some of these yearly events, I had no other choice but to witness it from the hospital, as it pretty much became my second home. And probably the worst part about it was having to deal with this chest IV port that I had to have, because with all the shit they were giving me, it would have been so much easier to go with that than to have so many needles getting stuck in me all the time. But the problem with that was that they had to clean this protective tape around it from time to time, and every time they did, it was like those days I just dreaded the most. It was just so painful to go through. And of course, I can't forget all those rounds of chemotherapy I had to go through, which they gave me through spinal taps, which they would give me through needles in the back. And the pain that came from those was sometimes just too unbearable for me. But what made it all worth it was that I was staying on track the entire time. And come July of 2012, I finally went into remission. And after staying in remission for 5 years, I was able to say that I was cancer free in 2017. To this day, I'm just so thankful that even though it had all its painful moments, the route I took to get to remission and into being cancer free was just as smooth as it could have possibly been. Having cancer at such a young age is so terrible, but the fact that I had my family and friends there all the time, just keeping me distracted from what was going on, it was that kept me going and kept me battling through what was such an awful nightmare. But long after I had survived cancer, I was struggling to get back to what many people would call a regular life. Because having cancer made me immunocompromised, which means that my immune system was pretty much weakened over the battle, and that means fighting off even the simplest illnesses was pretty difficult. And that meant having to be at home for quite a long time. So I was pretty much homeschooled from the moment I beat cancer to 2019. So I was pretty much being homeschooled for 7 years up until my high school graduation. And along the way, I lost a lot of friends that I had made in elementary school. And of course, being homeschooled makes it a lot tougher to make any new friends. And not to mention the fact that fucking COVID came raining down and kept me back in the house for a little bit more time. It was a really rough upbringing, to say the least. But again, video games came in the clutch because it allowed me to be introduced to all these amazing new communities and make lifelong connections. I am also fortunate to have found a new friend group, the Absentminded, baby, woohoo! And slowly start to experience again what it's like to have a normal life. I know I still got a little ways to go to being fully on track, but for now, I'm just happy about the fact that I am sitting here right now and telling my own story.
Oh yeah, and I hope to do more story times in the future. Stay tuned.
So yeah, that's the story of me beating cancer.
Hell yeah!